Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown. This replay was sent to me under the title of Epic, so I'm certainly expecting some epic stuff, as Sarmatian does lead the forces of the High Elves up against Razzle and the Dark Elves, so this is certainly a grudge match. These two factions, of course, hate each other historically, and we'll see that on the battlefield, I'm sure, in a blood and thunderous affair. So let's have a little look at the builds here. So for the forces of the High Elves in the front lines, we do have the ever-cheap, ever-cheerful Spearmen here to hold the line and allow the rest of the build to do the damage. These guys, pretty good defensive stats, although of course not much damage output. In the secondary battle line, we do have the White Lines of Therese. These guys a bit more hard-hitting, will certainly be able to deal with Dread Spears and Bleak Swords, and those hefty axes allow them to do okay as well up against some of the larger threats, and cavalry, chariots, and so forth, if they can pin them in. We do have some basic archers as well, dotted just behind these forces, and they're going to be sandwiched either side here of the Everqueen's Court Guard, the regiment of renowned Sisters of Avalon. For the most part, these look like they're going to be the heavy hitters of this High Elf build, kind of some huge burst damage from long range. We also have a nice cav contingent over on this right-hand side. Silver Helms of Shields are going to be rolling dirty with the Rahagras Pride, regiment of renowned War Lines of Therese. These guys, one of the greatest models in the game, in my opinion. Look at them, they look absolutely fantastic, coming in with the Mighty Roar effect. Now this does lower leadership and 25% speed, and in my humble opinion, anything in multiplayer which lowers speed or pins something in place is incredibly good normally. We also have one Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower to try and entice in the forces of the Dark Elves, and for leading this force today, we have an Archmage of Metal, so a very metal choice indeed. She's going to be rolling dirty on top of this gigantic eagle, coming with Arcane Conduit, Final Transmutation, Plague of Rust, and Searing Doom. And the Archmages are one of those lords which I really think are underrated, and I think they're very powerful. We certainly don't get to see too many of them. They're a very good cheap alternative as well, because if you bring a big combat lord, then you have to buy a mage alongside it, or a really expensive mage caster. Special character lord can be pretty expensive. This Dark Elf build looks absolutely awesome though, so let's hop into this straight away, and we have double Bloodrack Medusa slithering forward, one of which is the Siren of Red Ruin, one of my favourite looking models in the game. This lady looks insanely crazy. She also comes in with the Whale of Malice, which is a really nice hex. I believe it pins opponents in place and does a little bit of damage. These guys certainly going to do some okay damage with their big long shriek attacks against the tightly compact forces of the High Elves. They're basically mobile artillery pieces, think in the like of ancient salamanders and so forth. Now, of course, because of this investment here and this cav contingent, we have had to go relatively cheap, it seems, for the Dark Elves' actual kind of foot troops. We simply have 4 units of Bleak Swords, 2 of which are committed to guarding double Reaper Bolt Thrower. So they're going to have their work cut out to try and hold the line as long as possible. As over on this left-hand flank, we have the Knights of the Ebon Claw rolling alongside another unit of Cold One Dread Knights. Hell yeah, this build is awesome. Knights of the Ebon Claw, of course, regiment of renowned, do some pretty decent damage all round, incredibly expensive. Now, Dread Knights have had a pretty substantial health buff, as well as a small other few tweaks. I still think they're a little bit overpriced for what they do, but we'll have to see if they make me swallow my own words there. We then have a Master rolling on a steed, as well as Malekith down on a Cold One instead of on his Mighty Dragon. Coming with Gaze of Malice, Stand Your Ground, we of course have Soul Stealer and Word of Pain, a good little toolkit. And yeah, let's get this battle underway. So it looks like both the Bloodrack Medusas are going to push forward straight away to try and put a bit of pressure on the Spearmen and do some damage to them. Bolt Throwers may switch their attention to them relatively soon, although for now it looks like they're hunting down the Knights of the Ebon Claw, which again is going to be a high value target for the artillery to whittle down. Archers are starting to unleash some feathered arrows onto the Bloodrack Medusas, who are now going to pop up, say hello, and then simply slither back down the hill away from the archer fire. But it looks like they are going to be dragging forward some Spearmen, so perhaps turning and engaging there. They can do some good work, and a big blast straight to the face goes through a ton of Spearmen, killing 20 models in one shot. However, I'm sure Sarmatian won't be too kind of upset about this. Spearmen are incredibly cheap, in fact the cheapest unit he's brought today, so getting the ammunition wasted on such a unit isn't going to be the end of the world for him, especially because Bloodrack Medusas don't have a huge pool of ammunition to kind of bring forth throughout the whole battle. over here. It looks like somehow that Master took a little bit of damage, perhaps a Searing Doom from the Archmage or something. And it looks like the Reaper Bolt Thrower as well probably wants to start targeting down archers where it can. It's not going to be able to win the artillery duel. I suppose there's two of them, but I do find the Eagle Bolt Thrower kind of trades a little bit more effectively. But yeah, shooting down the archers, getting them off the field and trying to win the mobility game could be key in allowing the Bloodwrack Medusas to carry the day. But for now, it looks like they're quite happy just to kind of sliver around and pick on some of the weaker high elf troops, doing some pretty nice damage to the spearmen who have rallied at this point. Maybe want to again here do some damage to the archers, and it looks like the bolt throwers are now starting to rain hell down upon the archers, which, as I said before, is a good target. Break these guys off the field, going to give more free reign to the Bloodwrack Medusas to really do their damage, and those big sonic blasts coming in, doing massive kills off straight out of the gate. You can see already up to 51 and 26 kills, but only on cheap troops. It looks like the Archmage of Metal is going to be flying overhead, trying to drop a Searing Doom on the Reaper Bolt Thrower. Looks like they do just about waddle out the way. Still going to take some damage on the actual artillery crew, but they won't mind that as long as those artillery pieces stay intact. Their damage output is still going to be exactly the same. Bloodwrack Medusa's now starting to take a considerable amount of damage due to this archer pressure, but the longer it takes for the High Elves to kind of get into combat, the worse it's going to be for them, of course. And this bolt thrower is just going to make more and more value as archers can go down in their droves here, but all get back up onto their feet. That spread attack from the bolt throwers doesn't really kill models anywhere near as effectively, of course, as the single shot. One unit of spearmen does over-engage slightly, allowing the Master and Malekith to clear them up quite happily, and the Bloodwrack Medusa is going to be pulling back, but again, down to about half health is some scary stuff. Archers now the focus attention of their deathly shrieks. Let's see if we can follow a blast in, and boom! Those things get launched so quickly across the battlefield, breaking one of those archers off the field. Now it looks like the Everqueen's Court Guard are being targeted down by the bolt thrower. Again, good target for them to kind of pick on. They're very expensive all round. Another Searing Doom going to be coming down on the Cold One Dread Knights, doing some glorious damage from that Archmage there. Only 8 kills so far, but her spells are certainly packed a punch. And in the back lines, Silverhelm's looking to try and find a home, but the Dark Elf player ever watchful here, with the Knights of the Ebon Claw just peeling away to say hello and kind of push those guys away as the High Elves continue this very slow advance. But it's good play by the High Elves. You know, they're sacrificing their weaker troops for the most part, and then as soon as there's a bit more of an opportunity and these Bloodwrack Medusas have been forced back and the cavalry is in position, now he's going to start marching with his white lines and getting into that front line. And so we have a unit of Dragon Princes that I maybe missed in the breakdown early on, who do attempt to swoop in, but the Master and Malekith are some deadly combatants. You don't really want to mess with them in a hand-to-hand, at least isolated, so they are going to be falling back, at least for now. Looks like the Medusas are going to be used in combat, pushing through and doing some nice damage to the white lines, flinging a lot of these guys onto the ground before probably pulling back and cycling once more. And over in the distance, the Reaper Bolt Thrower, and this is one of the problems with artillery pieces that are close to the front line without too much to protect them. Once the archer kind of line gets into range, they annihilate them so quickly. But a lovely counter charge by the Cold One Dread Knights and the Master and Malekith should allow them to beat back these Silverhelms for the most part. Looks like they may be able to escape. No, the Raptors are going to be clawing at their hides and ripping them apart. So not a good day for them. Rahagra's Pride just kind of watching, probably a little tear in their eye as their brethren do get slaughtered. Dragon Princes have managed to hunt down the last of the Reaper Bolt Thrower, which is now being attacked by bowfire as well. So the long-range artillery pieces for the Dark Elves are pretty much spent at this point. Knights of the Ebon Claw have been trying to deal with Silverhelms, but now at their kind of beaten and beleaguered state, don't really want to go toe-to-toe with the elite Dragon Princes, but a glorious final transmutation Overcast there catches both of the Medusas, as well as Bleak Swords and the Reaper Bolt Thrower crew. That was a glorious cast, doing massive damage. Interesting to see how much value this Archmage does get at the end of the battle. He's going to be popping down, and that big beak certainly likes to eat snake, hunting off one of the Bloodwrack Medusas. Silverhelms as well darting in here in an attempt to support. The Whale of Malice does come down to do a little bit of damage as well. As for the rest of the battle, as expected, Bleak Swords are slowly going to be losing this fight to White Lions. They're not meant to fight this type of troop for too long, and they're given a little bit tit for tat, but for the most part, those heavy cleaving axes ripping elves apart with deadly efficiency. And the bow force is now alive and active, with nothing to really shut them down now the bolt throws have been dealt with. The Cold One Dread Knights getting obliterated from long range, but Dark Elves certainly in with a good shout. Malekith is very healthy, and it looks like the Siren of Red Ruin is as well, up to 118 kills, although the second one has been forced off at this point alongside some Silverhelms. And in the back line, the remnants of both of the Cold One Dread Knights trying to team up on the Dragon Princes after first fending off the Rahagra's Pride, and they should do pretty good in sustained combat. Now if the Dragon Princes consistently cycle charge them, they could be in trouble, but the Cold One Dread Knights have pretty good kind of staying power, at least for cavalry, as most cavalry, of course, has lances and wanted to cycle in, but these guys come in with their maces, and maces are pretty deadly off horseback. They've got a big impact, kind of those charging attacks. And then some Dragon Princes getting dragged down as well by a bit of friendly fire from that bolt thrower, which isn't the accuracy Elves are known for, I suppose. But the Sign of Red Ruin also going to float back here, help clear up the Dragon Princes. But this is the problem for the Dark Elves at the moment, is the infantry fight has been won, and won rather effectively here by all these white lines who are now pushing through to the back line. They can try and use their mobility as well to hunt down Bleak Swords who have been kind of separated from the main force. Well, it looks like the army darting back to shut down the bolt thrower. Malekith and the Master fighting toe-to-toe, side by side. Easily going to be able to beat back the Silver Helms and probably clear up the Everqueen's Court Guard. But the whole while, they will be taking damage as well from some spearmen. I would personally take the Archmage now and kind of float back onto these Bleak Swords in an attempt to save the Bolt Thrower. Maybe drop the artillery pieces and just run for the hills. It looks like that's actually just what's happening as well. Fantastic micro here from Sarmation, as always, as the Archmage comes down and easily routes off those Bleak Swords, helping protect the long-range crew. And now the balance power, though, is still very heavily against the High Elves, most likely because of the current health situation for both the Lords. And the ammunition as well is running danger low here for the High Elves, although they should be able to clean up these Bleak Swords on a last desperate charge in. Shields have been raised as the archers try and thud one or two more arrows home, but looks like they're missing for the most part. Bleak Swords do start to waver and get that charge animation off. That should increase their morale a little bit, and these archers unfortunately going to be carved up and sacrificed to Cain. In the back lines, Cold One Dread Knights look like they were able to fell the Dragon Princes, also holding the white lines in place, allowing that Bloodwrack Medusa to do some massive burst damage. 143 kills, been a real good chaff clearer so far. If we take a look at the whole battlefield, there is not much left at all. The High Elves do have the numbers, but are a little bit spread out at this point, and not too many troops left that can shut down at this Bloodwrack Medusa. We have a little quick look here, up to over 1,500 damage value, which is pretty good stuff. And now she's unimpeded on the battlefield, coming in with only 5 blasts left, but if she targets them well into white lines, that's still going to be some really good value. The Master is going to isolate himself in an attempt to shut down the Bolt Thrower, which is going to leave him open to the Archmage, so looks like he changes his mind last second. A lovely Gaze of Malice as well is going to clear up Malekith, and both of these guys now on their steeds can simply leave this infantry corps behind, get over here and finish off this Bolt Thrower, which has been fun all game, so it's been doing some good work. Looks like the Archmage considering coming in for a sniping attempt, but I think the Master would probably be able to hold until Malekith gets there, and then that's basically throwing away your Archmage. So I like staying in the air and trying to get the value out of the Everqueen's Court Guards where possible. It looks like a lot of the Dark Elf forces are starting to shatter at this point. Even the Siren of Red Ruin did unfortunately take a huge amount of damage from that Bolt Thrower and archers. That she's actually going to break with some ammunition left, but pinning a good shift all round. There is some Cold One Dread Knights returning, but I don't think they're going to make it back to the battlefield before they shatter. And it looks like it is the last stand of the Ultimate Bros. The Malekith and Master team up, and they do some massive damage to the Archmage, who very luckily scuttles through her own troops. And that's a good way to get back up in the air if you are a character who flies. You pull through your own troops rather than the enemy. They will give way to you, and you can actually escape. Sisters are going to be... I have no idea what they were targeting there, but I'd say they're trying to loop some shots up onto the Master, but they miss completely and slaughter a couple of white lines. That's better. A lovely sight raking down the flank of the Master's horse there, doing some big old burst damage to him. As Malekith, though, does turn and feast upon the white lines, and perhaps the Dark Elf Hero Corps can carry. Balance of power still is in their favour, which bodes well for their leadership, and the Everqueen's Court Guard are basically out of ammunition at this point. Good, diligent play, however, coming by the High Elves, ensuring that they force off all these units, although the Siren does get a slap there onto the Archmage, as a Wail of Malice comes down as well. But it looks like the Siren is going to break before the Archmage, and in fact, that Eagle slams her to the ground. Some really cool animations, and that is one dead angry Snake Lady. So, the Archmage, 570 health, probably wants to float above the battlefield, allow the white lines to try and drag down these brave heroes, and drop spells left, right, and centre if possible. Wind's Magic, though, probably a little bit tight at this point. Master is going to dart over here to try and finish off the Everqueen's Court Guard, who are very good melee combatants considering their ranged troops, and he doesn't want to get caught out like this. If the White Lions are allowed to fight alongside the Archmage and isolate the Master, they'll probably be able to slaughter him. And he's a little bit squishy as well. He's still just an elf, down to about 500 health. Is probably going to end up with Malekith versus the world here. He does dart over though with a lovely ramming animation, sending those sisters flying before kind of darting his way, swinging through the white lines. But those heavy axes, as we said earlier, will do nice damage here. But a Gaze of Malice coming down. This Gaze of Malice has really been on point so far, pushing all these white lines to the ground, stopping them attacking and doing a tiny bit of damage. Malekith, though, does watch in despair as a feeble 3 Dragon Princes hunt down and slaughter his best friend in the world, this little Master here, which is a rather sad day for Malekith. Justice for the Master, he shall be screaming as he slaughters some Elven artillery crew who are desperately clinging to their peace, but there's not enough of them left to actually man it anymore. As Dragon Prince is coming for a lovely little charge, and it looks like that Archmage is going to be taking the safe route here, simply floating around and staying away from the battle. Look around the battlefield, it is an empty plain of dust for now, but we do have a big fat Soul Stealer coming in, who's going to really help heal up Malekith as well. As kind of clearing out a ton of these troops, it catches every single unit in the High Elf army, apart from that Archmage, and a unit of Wavering Everqueen's Court Guard. And yeah, these guys are going to be getting danger low at this point and starting to waver. Can Malekith do it? But a Plague of Rust has been popped on him, lowering his armor just to 80, and with those big axes, I certainly expect the White Lions to do some huge damage. I think this Archmage may have to start committing to this fight, cycle charging in, trying to distract Malekith, and when he, tries to attack the Archmage, you pull him through your own troops and get back up into the air once more. And trying to find the right route in, has decided to attack from this flat side here, pushing Malekith deeper into those white lines, before once again falling back, but taking a huge hit for his effort, down to just 215 health. He does not want to stay and fight this. It looks like we are going to be having a word of pain going down on the white lines of Therese, trying to lower their melee attack, and they're kind of the unit which can do damage output to him. Malekith, however, with 600 health, is indeed going to break here, and that is going to be an incredibly close game. That Archmage, one more hit, would have been out, and then I think Malekith's health probably would have, morale, sorry, would have held, and the High Elves probably would have broken all across the field. Fantastic game. Massive shout out to both Razzle for an epic build, as well as Sarmation for dragging his way through and winning in the end. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. Anyway guys, that was awesome. What can I say? I'm got a little bit speechless. This build nearly worked. It's a pretty wild build for sure, and I think its strong weaknesses did kind of show in the late game of that front line is gonna break. You need to get good value from the rest of your build, and overall the Dread Knights actually performed pretty effectively. Now, good damage value across the board by both of them. They are rather expensive, so you do need to get huge amounts of value back, and the Bloodwrack Medusa play was pretty spot on. Slithering forward, hunting down units before falling back, but as you can see, kind of picking on the weaker units, which was down to Sarmation, funneling them in to distract them. Didn't really give them back their damage value, only 567 on this one. However, the Regiment Round one far better survived, more to the late game, also got some good shots in on the archers, Dragon Princes and so on, managed to rack up 11,000 damage dealt, which is very impressive stuff all round. Malekith as well, nearly carrying the day. I've seen Malekith carry the day too many times. I get PTSD every time I see him on the battlefield. As for Sarmation's forces, fantastic use of his Archmage all round, getting a really solid 2,600 damage value. She's also not too expensive, came with a rather small kind of magic toolkit, and only on the Eagle mount rather than a Dragon, means she's rather cost effective. Did some good work trying to snipe out the Reaper bolt throws, but also doing big damage to the Cold One Dread Knights, and a really fantastic final transmutation in there as well. White Lines of Trace were the real kind of heroes of this build, the solid backbone who carved the way through the front line and then dragged down the rest of the troops into the late game. Anyway guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.